It's not 46%. It's £10 million higher than that. Again, suspiciously overlooked by people that don't care about the detail because they have agendas to portray, and that's fine.
Sure,
do what
sure,
you got to do.
Just agenda,
I'm not going to
sure,
sit here.
I'm
not going to sit here and say that it's nighttime at 4 o'clock. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon because other people want to believe it. It's bollocks.
You'll like this one, Brian. Spurs made 2 signings yesterday. Finally got them over the line. Beyonce for 2 more nights at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and also Kendrick Lamar and SZA are performing at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. So the best in class, the best talent the world has to offer is coming to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, as well as, I think Chisora actually said after his fight, I wanna fill out the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. You have no doubt that's going to happen.
So it's not all world-class talent then.
Not all, but
he'd make a good 6, Chisora. I think.
Our fans. So there was obviously massive outrage about this on social media and stuff about these kind of announcements coming after a game like Aston Villa the morning after. Brian, do you think fans are well within their right to get as angry as they're getting after seeing these kind of announcements?
I think the world knows my answer to this one. Yes, in fact, I wish there was more anger and outrage. You've also forgot to mention on transfer deadline day when they officially announced Beyonce, but then had to remove the tweet immediately after because of the outrage. It's been immediate. Ben, it was like you said yesterday. You've just got out of 2 cups. There's been media silence from the Spurs side. And the very first thing they do next day, and I understand what Sim said as well, that they're probably pre-planned. But you could even pre-planned it to say a couple of days after. But we don't know what the results are going to be. We know what the mood in the camp will be. I've started saying with this so-called game-changing stadium that was going to change how we approach things and do things, it hasn't been game-changing. It's changed the game. And what I mean by it's changed the game is the quality is now invested in the NFL, the boxing, the F1 experience, the quality of talent that comes to perform inside the stadium. And as I've said, I wish that stadium was used every single bloody day, apart from match day, to generate revenue, to get this club to where it needs to be. But it does not go back in. It does not. And the way that they do not read the room, they do not care. They just do not care about these fans are, and I class myself as a massive one of these within the Levy out camp. They just don't take any consideration into how the client, how the client feels anymore. I'm furious, as are others, obviously. The way they do this thing with just not a care in the world for how the supporter feels is just unacceptable. And in answer to your question, was it right for the fans to be outraged? I wish it was more. I really do.
Sean, I can see you shaking your head over there. And do you not think that from like a PR standpoint, from looking at the fans, and after going out 2 cups and with such a whimper, and you're looking at the state of the squad at the moment with the injuries and stuff, do you not think it is a bit of a PR disaster to announce that literally the morning after going out the FA Cup?
Yeah, the problem with that sentiment is I'm 99% certain of this reality, but I'm not 100% because I don't know. I can't clarify right now the rules regarding companies that are essentially share listed, but do not necessarily have a share price on the alternative investment market. But for those that do, if you have a revenue and a needle moving announcement, especially if that ability to generate revenue from the announcement has to take place, i.e. tickets going on sale on this date, in the case of Tottenham and Beyonce, then they have a requirement by law to announce them when they are signed. Right? So as much as I can empathize with this notion that the timing is sometimes unfortunate, facts don't care about your feelings. especially if you are someone who happens to, no disrespect, Brian, but when you said like you're an advocate now, and I love you to pieces, mate, so this is not a personal attack, but like when you say you're an advocate for Tottenham using, and a lot of Levy outers have moved the goalposts on
I always
this.
have been. I always have been since the stadium
No,
was generated.
you haven't, mate. You haven't, bro. I remember being on the Irish Hotspur with you way back when I first started out in this community. You know, I remember deadline day, the day before. I remember the announcement of projects and processes and revenues. And you weren't, and it's not against you because there's so many people in the Levy out movement who used to be, we don't give a F about this, that, and the other. Focus on Tottenham, Daniel Levy, this, that, and the other, right? But as soon as the argument became, hang on a minute, the generation of revenue that is not on the shoulders of Tottenham fans that allows you to compete, put aside how you spend the money or whether Daniel Levy has the appetite to go deep or go big or whatever else. But as soon as the argument was made clear that these are, first of all, diversifications away from the responsibility of Tottenham fans to generate every other penny or pound that the club can make to go on the transfers that we do spend. And like I say, you can forget about whether you misspend it, just the generation of the revenue. You and so many others that I know were critical of this notion. It was, we're a multi-arena. We're not a football club anymore. We're a multi-sports arena. I remember, let's look at the Tottenham website. Let's look at the Tottenham website, right? It says, by the way, we're also Tottenham Stadium. All of this stuff, and you might still stand by it, Brian, but the goalposts were moved after the argument became settled science around the fact that it is a benefit to the club that people that are fans of Beyonce or go-karting are putting money into the pocket of the club that goes back into the net spend revenue. Right? People say 46% wage to turnover ratio, and it's unacceptable compared to Aston Villa that are 96%. Well, as I say, Aston Villa are doing things that are, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours later. The reason why Tottenham have 46% but still have a higher wage bill than most other teams, not necessarily relative to turnover or relative to revenue, but those things are because of the revenue that we generate from things that are outside of the pockets of you, me, or any other people that are watching this. If you like go-karts, if you like NFL, if you like rugby league, if you like all those other concerts, those things participate in the revenue stream generation. And the goalposts were moved after the argument was made clear around what the differences were. And to me, not only that part of the conversation is very much necessary to be spoken about, but is overlooked by so many. But on top of that, and again, I'm 99% sure, but I'm not 100% sure because I'm not sure of the detail regarding Tottenham Hotspur, who whilst they have 30,000 micro shareholders, they're not technically listed on the alternative investment market anymore. But as a consequence of the fact that they do have shareholders, I'm pretty sure, very sure, but not certain, that they have to announce those things when the decisions are made. And therefore, the timing might be unfortunate, but it is what it is. And so whilst you can throw your toys out of the pram, everybody who feels that way, and say, it's disgusting, we're prioritizing one over the other, if I'm right, and I'll clarify later when I do my due diligence, then the timing might be unfortunate, but it is what it is. It has to be done when it has to be done.
Can I give you an example of something very quickly, and you can respond to it? So if that was how you, and it could be, because like I said to you, when it comes to financials and the laws and everything like that, you wipe the floor with me. It's never been my forte. I'll never try and get into a debate with you on it because I've just got nothing to add on that side of the things. I speak as obviously a passionate, outspoken fan as opposed to financial. But go back to pre-COVID. So still in the stadium, just as COVID was actually coming in, we were away at Burnley. And it was a 1-1 draw and Dele Alli scored the penalty. When we went 1-0 down, Tottenham Hotspur announced and sent a massive email out to all season ticket holders saying you can pre-book Lady Gaga.
Right. So
was that just announced literally on that day and they had to announce it during a football match? And that's why they announced it then. And this is just because I don't understand.
I'm not talking about, like, the announcement of when you can buy tickets is different to the announcement of when the contract is signed with the artist. Right, they're different things.
But still putting stuff out.
It's important to know, by the way, just to clarify, it's important to know that all these concerts, Kendrick Lamar, they announced all their tour dates yesterday, not just Tottenham, Villa Park, Cardiff, all these other ones. They announced
There
it
you go.
all
That's
together.
another interesting point. I appreciate you, Sim. I've thrown you under the bus today, mate. You didn't have to support me there. But look, people in the comment section. I'm looking at the comments. People in the comment section might be like yawning and saying this is all boring, spreadsheets and all that stuff. At the end of the day, I'm just trying to bring you as close to certainty to I am to the rules around how you can do that stuff as a company that still has micro shareholders. Because if you've got a revenue and a needle moving scenario, so as much as you might not be interested in that stuff, you don't. If you don't care, you don't have to care. But the facts are the facts, or what I think are facts, and I'm pretty sure they are facts. I just don't know whether or not it still stands true for Tottenham because they're not technically listed on the AIM anymore, the AIM market. But if they are, then yeah, sorry. As soon as you sign the deal, you have to make because it's revenue moving, it's needle moving, and just like with every other publicly listed company, if you're BP, if you're Sky, if you're anyone else, and you sign certain deals at certain times, those things have to be announced within certain timelines. It's just the rules of how shareholder operated companies work. So I'm not suggesting for a second that it's not uncomfortable and that the timing could be better, but I don't believe that it's some like distraction technique. If it is, again, I don't think it is, but if it is, then the club are moronic to do that because you invoke the reactions of people like Brian and people in the comment section that don't care about that stuff and just see it for what they think it is, which is a method to say, well, let's reprioritize what Tottenham Hotspur is. And I think that they're not idiots. They're not idiots, Tottenham. So
can I read you a quote? Can I read you a quote from Donna Cullen in the Financial Times last year when Beyonce was announced? She says, Beyonce was a bit of a tipping point, actually. The stadium operates a bit of a sweet spot in the market in terms of the size and how you can construct it for concerts. So we do boxing, we do concerts, rugby, NFL, visitors, attractions, conferences and events, and we are about to start building a hotel. She doesn't mention that there's a football club there as well.
Because the conversation's not. It's an assumption, right? I'm not a fan of Donna Cullen, by the way. I'm no fan of Donna Cullen. I think that her relationship with Daniel Levy is
problem.
Yeah, massive. I 100. I subscribe to that. I want her out of the club. I don't know why she has her oar in with certain things. She's like a PR expert, but she also had her say on the stadium, and the architecture. It's massively problematic, but. To answer your question, Sim, she's been asked a question by the Financial Times regarding multi-use stadium arena, and I guess there's an assumption that we're a football club, but on top of that, we also do yada yada yada. So, I mean, look, people will feel how they want to feel. I'm just someone that I try to bring to the attention of people that don't have the resources, the inclination, the interest, or attention on the things that they don't necessarily know or understand or want to, and that they have opinions that are shaped on that ignorance. And so I'm someone that understands that stuff maybe more than the average person. So like, you might hate me for bringing it up because it doesn't suit your narrative, but again, facts don't care about the feelings of people that don't care, right? I think it's important to know these things. I'm not trying to shape anyone's opinion, but you're better off knowing than not knowing, in my opinion.
Yeah, but Spurs did delete the tweet on the deadline day about announcing the Beyonce concerts. So if it was a legal requirement that they had to put something out, I mean, does it have to be on social media? Does it have to be a statement on the website? I mean, what kind of form does that look like? And why did they delete it on the transfer window deadline day if it's a legal requirement?
Well, to add on top of that, Sean, and this is just to add to it, then you can go, is obviously the last two announcements that they did. I don't even know who Scissors is. It's showing my age and lack of music knowledge. I know Kendrick, but those two announcements, Beyonce and this new one that got announced yesterday with Kendrick Lamar, they didn't put anything on social media. It was only because people received the email. So obviously they're getting a backlash on you. I think they actually.
Sorry, who didn't put anything on social media?
The Tottenham Hotspur Stadium normally announce these things via not on the Tottenham Hotspur official, on Spurs Stadium or the Hotspur Stadium, whatever the Twitter handle is, Spurs Stadium, and they normally announce everything through there. Any event, anything that goes on at the stadium, whether it be the NFL, whether it be concerts, boxing, whatever, they do a press kind of release on Twitter going, hey, let's listen, this is happening. Radio silence on there yesterday. Just Spurs members and season ticket holders and people that are signed up
And
to the
shareholders,
website or
and
whatever.
shareholders, right?
Yeah, well, shareholders, obviously.
I would imagine
all
shareholders received
all
communication of
released
it.
by email only.
Right.
Nothing
Look,
I
mentioned.
received the email.
I would hazard a guess that part of the delivery of stock sensitive, price sensitive news doesn't have a legal requirement to be delivered via social media. I would imagine that it has to be delivered to shareholders, right? And so therefore you can chastise the club for delivering it on Twitter if you want to.
I've just been
That's fair
messaged by a shareholder who said we received no email.
I received an email as a season ticket holder.
As a season holder, they're saying shareholders, or this one specifically, has just sent me saying I'm a shareholder and never heard anything about it or received an email.
Well, that's hearsay. To be honest, I can't verify or validate that. But all I'm saying is that there is, by law, for traditional stock listed companies, there's a requirement to distribute and disseminate that information that's needle moving in timely fashion. That's just the rules. I don't know if it's the same for Tottenham. That's what I'm saying. I'm not certain of the fact, but I would imagine that is. Whether it comes to doing it on Twitter, I'm sure that they don't have to do it via Twitter, right? Maybe that's a faux pas from Tottenham. Maybe, right? Timing of that stuff. But I would imagine that if there is a legal requirement to do so, that every shareholder received an email. Maybe that man needs to check his spam. I don't know. But
you know what it is, well, I mean, we're talking about this, it just detracts away from what's going on the football side of the business, because again, these concerts have been coming in, they've been coming regularly. And what I wanted to say, but when Sim said we've got this section coming up, what I have seen since Leicester, or maybe even Everton, the Everton game, I think it was, has been a major swing. Obviously, people know how I stand about it, why I feel about it, how I feel about it, how long, why, everything. The amount of messages I'm getting from people that were not Levy out or undecided, that are now saying, do you know what, I'm fully on board. I've seen this season with whatever it may be. I'm getting countless amount of messages, whether it be reached out to me privately, email, social media, whatever. There are so many more people now. And like I said, everyone has their breaking point. Everyone has had their breaking point, because at the end of the day, whether you're a financial guy like yourself, Sean, that can see these side of things that I don't or whatever, every single one of us, no matter where we stand on any Spurs debate or part of the football club, is we want a successful Tottenham. That's all we want, a successful football club. And I had one person that said, you know what, I gave him a 5-year plan for when we move into the stadium to see things change. And he said, yeah, things have changed. They've got worse.
They have got worse. They have 100%.
And this is the thing. This is where we need to bring it back to. All the concerts that come in. We talk about these concerts, like I said, brilliant revenue coming in, fantastic. Will the manager see a large portion of it and be able to do what he does, whether it be Andrew or anyone? No, in my honest opinion, and I base that on the amount of time I've been Levy out. Will we reach for the stars?
Brian, can I ask you a question?
Of course you
mate?
can.
You're a staunch Levy outer. As you would have heard on my channel, you mentioned me the other day, acknowledging it, right? I support you. I support people that want to raise their voice. I always think it's necessary, right? And I disagree is the outcome that you want and how it can be achieved. However, if you want, this is where I fundamentally disassociate myself with anybody that's Levy out that happens to support the idea that trophy success is now a failure and a problem, and also relegation is a part of the solution. I think that stuff is just absolutely madness. As Ben, you said earlier, it's crazy, right? I completely agree. Yeah. But if you were to just zoom out from Tottenham for a split second, do you acknowledge that part of the problem, however big of a factor you think it is, whether you think Daniel Levy is the biggest factor or not, do you associate with the idea that an inability of the Premier League lawmakers to implement a set of rules that prevents the state-backed football clubs from circumventing and finding loopholes galore, because the smartest guys in the room are certainly employed by the likes of Manchester City, the lawyers, right, and Chelsea and et al. Do you support the notion, and I would back it up by saying, for all of the teams that used to be relatively as successful as Tottenham were back in the 90s, 80s, 70s and 60s, that all of those teams that also used to win trophies that no longer do, because there's only 5 teams that win 92% of all trophies in the last 25 years and 3 teams that have won 75% in the last 12 years, if you subscribe to the notion that there's more than just Tottenham that used to be successful that don't, And there must be a reason why. It can't just be Daniel Levy's fault. Aston Villa, Newcastle, Derby, West Brom, Leeds, Wolves, etc., Everton, goes on. The list goes on. They were all very, very successful back in the day. And they no longer are. And they all changed their owners. And none of them, maybe Newcastle will this time around, but none of them have won anything either since they've changed their owners. Do you at least acknowledge that there are problems with the laws around what is and isn't sustainability, and what is and isn't financial fair play, and what is and isn't a leveling of the playing field, which, for what it's worth, FFP and PSR and the Premier League lawmakers used to say it was all about sustainability. Now it's supposed to be about a balanced and more even output, right? If you acknowledge, if you say, yes, there's a problem there, then why can't you and people like yourself have as much energy, or at least some energy, towards the notion that we as a fan base and those of other teams that want to see more success, less boring outcomes, go towards the Premier League and say, figure it out? Because the only time that there is a direct relationship between fans protesting and immediate outcomes was in the case of the Super League. So why?
Well, also, that Sean is
last thing I'll say. Why can't people like yourself go for it with Daniel Levy, but also say, yeah, he's a problem. He's a bottleneck within Tottenham, but outside of Tottenham, there's just as many problems. And the inability to solve for that is always going to make Tottenham or anyone else have a struggle to compete. And if we can do that and share the same energy or similar levels of energy, then every other team that struggles to win trophies anymore have a better chance of it. But instead of that, you get some people who laugh and ridicule and mock the notion that FFP and PSR was supposed to be a game changer last season and wasn't. And that to me is problematic, because it comes across to me like you care more about being right, not you, Brian, but others. You care more about being right than you do what is right. If you really are true to the notion that you want Tottenham to win, then solving for Levy is part of it, but solving for the financial impropriety is another. And there's no energy towards that from Tottenham fans who feel so strongly about Daniel Levy.
Right, so there's a lot to digest there. What I will say with this, Sean, is obviously I am going to speak from a Tottenham part to begin with. Obviously, we know there's a big problem. There's been a big problem, whether it be PSG in France, Roman Abramovich starting it with Chelsea, all these big people coming in and spending this money. These rules have been meant to be a game changer and even it out and whatever. And I agree, football's got wildly out of control with finances. It really has. It's got ridiculous across the world of football, because of these people that have come in. But what I will say, when we've had, since this has come in, when FFP first came in, we heard from Daniel Levy and Tottenham saying, right, we need to get our ducks in a row with this. We need to make sure we're aligned with this. And then when we're aligned with this, we'll be good to go. We will be good to start going and making a dent and competing, because we'll be better off to spend where others can't. Then obviously PSR came out and we got told we had to get our ducks in a row for that one, which we have. And technically, obviously, without going for I don't expect us to go and rival Manchester City and Chelsea and buy these players at ridiculous 100 plus £1 million players and pay 3, 4, 500 grand. I don't want that. I'd love to have that, but I don't expect it.
The only reason they keep doing it, Brian, is because of the impropriety in finance, right?
Yeah, but so Sean, where I will say right now, Spurs are at a level financially. I retweeted what was that report you showed where it said Spurs could spend £250 million this January? I can't Rambles, the Swiss Ramble.
180 million Swiss Ramble, yeah.
But we don't. We have this playing field, but there is calibers of players out there that Spurs can go and get, and literally anyone else that is trying to go to battle with us, we can, unless it's one of those big teams. But the way Spurs handle transfers right now, and you look at it with all this money coming in, the wage bill going down, Spurs are in a position now where we should be able to attack the market. The numbers are out, the revenue is there. Spurs should right now, and I'm not saying reach for the stars and compete with Manchester City, Chelsea, and the ones that can literally just say, right, is 100 million, 150 million for this one, 100 million for that one. But Spurs now are in a position where they should be moving in or swimming in bigger ponds to get bigger fish, to be able to climb that gap and breach that gap between those clubs, and we're not. We're doing the opposite, in fact.
You're not answering the question, though, mate. You're not answering the question. Why can't you hold the same energy towards the flagrant disregard of rules?
Because I care about Tottenham. Because I care about
if you care about Tottenham, Tottenham does not work in an echo. Sorry, does not work in a chamber. It doesn't. It works within an ecosystem that has 19 other Premier League football clubs, of which 3 or 4 are flagrantly disregarding the rules and finding loopholes. Why can't you guys do 2 things at the same time? Hold Daniel Levy's feet to the fire.
Regardless of that, Sean, are Spurs doing everything that they can in their power to even get to those thresholds or even get close to them?
They're doing everything in their power? No. But that's not the. I share your frustration with that.
It is the point. It is the point.
It's not the
we're
point.
Not even doing everything within our power.
Even if Tottenham were to spend, first and foremost, when Brian mentioned that tweet that I put out there was 2 other sub tweets beneath it that also gave a little bit more context to the reality of the situation, that you don't want to fly too close to the sun like Icarus and burn yourself. Just because you can spend that much doesn't mean you should, right? But you can spend more for 100%. And I echo and share the sympathies and the sentiments of people that are frustrations with that in that regard. But as I said, right, look at the other teams and the argument. I don't care about the other teams. You should care about the other teams, because all of the other teams that used to be successful that now aren't, just like Tottenham, they've changed their owner. And has anything changed in their pursuit of success? And the answer is absolutely nothing.
Well, I'll say maybe not in to get consistent trophies. I agree with you on that, Sean. But just look at Aston Villa, for example, who you just used them as an example, right? When we got to the Champions League final, they're in the Championship. Now they are growing gradually. They've got a higher wage bill than us now, which is ridiculous.
To 96%.
And yeah, fine. I don't know about the percentages, but in terms of money that they're spending, that they spend more than us on wages,
right?
Which is not sustainable.
It's not sustainable.
But they've also overtaken us in terms of
now they
football merit.
In an isolated moment in time, they have. But how many teams have knocked on the door?
They finished above us last season, and they're above us again this season.
Ben, how many times has that been how many times have Tottenham finished in top 4 in the last 15 years?
15 years, I don't know, 7, 8 maybe.
Right. How many times have Villa done it?
That's what I'm saying. I'm talking about the last 5 years.
How many? So you're saying that Villa, because of
we're going down, and other teams are going up, and they're overtaking us.
By doing what? By spending 96% of their revenue on salary.
Yeah, but sure, we don't have to spend 96%. I'm not asking. We've got revenue we can spend. I'm not.
I know you're not, Brian, but Ben just used an example of a team that is flagrantly breaching above, and then lo and behold, they go. People's going. Everybody who follows football finance is saying, how are Aston Villa doing it? And then they go and sell a player for £68 million net profit that is nowhere near worth that, who's at the start of his career, to Saudi Arabia. And it all makes sense when you kind of go, when last year you were saying, why would Aston Villa join Newcastle, City and Chelsea in the dissidence away from Premier League sustainability measurements? It doesn't suit them until you realise, oh, wait a minute, they've got a 96% spend threshold or a wage threshold that is wildly above. And the only way they can get on the right side in the short term is by having amortization processes that get them back on the right side of the line. And you know what? Aston Villa, if they qualify for Champions League, that will be their 3rd season in Europe in the last 3. They'll have to suddenly adhere to it. If you're not paying attention to what's happening outside of Tottenham, and you care so much about Daniel Levy, I think you're missing so much of the story. It's like dialing into the final of a movie.
I get what you're saying in terms of the percentage that they're paying in terms of their wage to turnover revenue. But look at ours. Aren't we one of the lowest, if not the lowest in the Premier League?
42%. I think it's 42%.
42% or 46%, whatever it is.
At the moment. But 46% at the moment, based on the numbers that include a year of revenue that has gone up. Well, actually, in the last year, it's gone down 6%. But you've also got the absence of Harry Kane, the absence of Ivan Perisic, the absence of Eric Dyer, the absence of Tanguy Ndombele. And by the way, and Lloris, right? But by the way, people say Tottenham dropped their salary bill by £32 million or whatever the number that's banded around. They didn't. They paid off £10 million. They didn't just like Tanguy Ndombele suspiciously is included in the list of why Tottenham's wage bill is suddenly so low, but it's overlooked the fact that we paid him off. So we didn't get it's not 46%. It's £10 million higher than that. Again, suspiciously overlooked by people that don't care about the detail because they have agendas to portray, and that's fine. Do what you got to do. I'm not going to sit here. I'm not going to sit here and say that it's nighttime at 4 o'clock. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon because other people want to believe it. It's bollocks.
Sure. Listen, what I will say with that, you look at it again, and the way I look at it, do I think what you're saying, and like I said, with finances, I'm not going to even try and lay a glove on you because it'll be a first round knockout. But what I will say is next summer, when we can go and use these advantages that we do have against other teams, whether we're in Europe, not in Europe, Spurs can compete, wages and financially. Will Spurs, if Spurs get, let's just put it in two ways. If Spurs get if they win the Europa League and get Champions League football, do I see Spurs going out buying Champions League elect players and paying on par with Sonny or maybe a little bit higher, going above that 200 grand bracket? No. If we don't win Europa and we finish in the bottom half of the table, do I see Daniel Levy saying, do you know what? This was a shit show. We need to buck our ideas up. We need to get back into that European race, let alone top 4 race. We need to spend money big and bring in, pay the wages. No, I don't. You're meant to say...
Did we not do that with Matisse Tell, though, Brian? Did we not spend... Like, the reason why we got Matisse Tell was not because we beat them on the draw. It was not because of... I mean, partly maybe because Ange Postecoglou got on the phone and did his salesman spiel. But ultimately, he wanted to go to Manchester United. Manchester United couldn't afford the £10 million loan fee. Couldn't afford to pay him 100% of his wages. Yep. Suddenly, we're financially more competent than Manchester United. And you know why? Because Manchester United paid £70 million for Casemiro, paid him 300 grand a week, and then renewed his contract for a 33-year-old or 32, however old he is, because they signed up Rashford. And Aston Villa, funnily enough, the same name comes up and up and up again and again and again. They're willing to pay him 275 grand a week, 75% of his wages. And if they take up the option, you have to pay 100% of the guy's wages, right? It's like I say, feel free to feel how you want. Feel free. I don't care. I'm never trying to change anyone's opinion, but there's information out there regarding why we are where we are. And I subscribe and empathize and share your frustrations with regards however you want to describe it, lack of ambition. I think it's a nonsense adjective that is subjective anyway. But ultimately, Brian, zoom out from Tottenham for a split second, and you're going to see that a massive part of the jigsaw of why Tottenham do or don't have the success that they do or could have is because of the influence of other things. And all I'm asking for is maintain. I subscribe and I support your efforts around holding Daniel Levy's feet to the fire. But if you really mean what you say, which is it's all about Daniel Levy, it's all about Tottenham's success, then why not hold the Premier League to account? Why not hold the lawmakers to account? Because what they are doing or not doing is ultimately why 92% of all trophies since Daniel Levy came in is won by 5 teams and why 75% is won by 2. And if you don't solve for that, you're never going to solve for anything.
What I will say is, well, 2 things I'll say is, first of all, I understand what you're saying about people zooming out looking at the Premier League, but there should be more Spurs fans that are looking at the financial side that should be zooming in and looking at Spurs, because Spurs is the number one thing we want success for.
Well, we'll see what happens on Sunday, right? I hope you guys have 1,000 people marching. I really do. I hope you do. I don't think you will, but I hope you will.
I think Change for Spurs and Jay have done an incredibly good job. And I completely forgot the second part I was going to say now, Sean. Thank you for that. I had something very valid to say, and for the life of me, I can't remember what it is.
It was going to blow you out of the water, Sean. It was going to be that. It was going to be the killer argument.
I was going to lay truth bombs all over the place. Bang, 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 everywhere. I cannot remember for the life of me.
Sim, can I ask you, mate? Because I
Yeah.
know how Ben feels. Ben's incredibly Levy out. Sim, are we going to align on this one, or are you going to throw me under the bus like I tried to do to you earlier?
Yeah,
Ange?
three against
How
one,
do you feel
Shawnee.
about?
Three
How do you feel
against
about
one.
Daniel?
If you were Ange in, I'd be by your side, but unfortunately, you've turned on me. So, no, in all honesty, I think I'm ready for change when it comes to board level. I agree with a lot of the sentiment that we don't do enough at the top to really close the gap or really give ourselves the best chance to compete, and it's been a consistent theme throughout his tenureship, in my opinion. I'm also sympathetic to your argument, Sean, that in this current landscape, we're working within parameters, whereas other teams are kind of finding ways to circumvent that. And we are kind of hanging our hats on the fact that the lawmakers are going to clamp down on all these financial rules, and teams are finding creative ways to go around it, whereas we're playing within the rules. And if everyone else did, we'd be in a much stronger position than we are. And the reality is, you know, City are in the midst of 115 charges and all these different things. They were found guilty on some other aspects, and then were able to avoid any sort of points deduction. Chelsea were, you know, brought into Bowley, and they've kind of found creative ways, 8-year contracts, and they've found creative ways to circumvent the rules. Aston Villa are spending 96% of their revenue, which is something we're never going to do and shouldn't do, to be honest. Spend that amount on revenue. So I understand those arguments as well.
50% of our revenue would be spending more than them on wages.
Huh?
If we were to only spend,
Yeah, that's my
50%
point.
of our
And we
revenue.
should be doing more. We should be doing more. 100%.
I agree.
We should be doing more, and I think it's right to put pressure on the board to do more, and I think it's right
I agree.
to protest and let them know that you're not happy with the current situation. We know that we're underperforming, and as well, I think a large part of it is we pay the highest ticket prices in Europe or the Premier League, and we're being and if you're going to charge that amount, then if you're going to treat us like customers, then we're going to treat you like a product, and that is the reality. And if you're not giving us what and I know, unfortunately, the reality is football isn't a product, and when you're a supporter and all these different things, you're a supporter for life, and you should be supporting the team. But that is how we're being treated by this board. We're being treated like consumers. So we're going to treat you the same in kind. If you're going to demand the highest ticket prices, we're going to demand on pitch success, and until you deliver that, we're going to be protesting, and we're going to be demanding that you do more. And I think that's also fair and right from this, because let's be honest, in terms of these ticket prices, they don't need to be this high. Whatever people want to say, we will have all these different revenue sums. They could afford to subsidise the match fees a bit and lower them, so that we're maybe a middle of the range team in the Premier League, not the highest. They're doing it so they can get those extra little bit of percentage.
We're not the highest.
We are the highest. Who's
Hang on
higher?
a second. Fulham have got a stand. Arsenal.
One stand.
Yeah, but why is that stand?
On average, we must be the highest.
Why? Well, on average, we have the best stadium in the world. You're not paying for the outcome; you're paying for the experience. That's what happens with sport. You don't get. It's not like going to the movies.
We're paying to watch our football.
You're paying to experience a game of football in a stadium that incorporates other things. Listen, it is what it is. Like, you can have your problem. I'm not going to die on the hill of the season ticket prices. I'm not. I don't care.
Just ticket price in general. They're the highest. They're one of the highest.
That's right. The reality is that
£96 in the South Stand for a Category A game. That's ridiculous. £94.
Fulham have the highest season tickets, and then in their new stadium, in the new stand. Why? Because they have to pay off the stadium, pay off the stand cost. Right? Arsenal have got higher season tickets, and Arsenal, I believe, have got higher Category A games. I'm not sure. They may have more games.
I think our lowest
price
ticket is higher than anyone else's. I think.
Yep.
Either way, but you're it's not. Just bear in mind here that you're not paying for an outcome. You're paying for an experience. You're paying for the not knowing, like everyone else does in every other stadium, but you're also paying to experience it in the newest and best stadium in the world. At least that's the way it's described by many people, right? So,
sure. So you got what you got to remember as well is come April, there will be another ticket increase, and then also, Levy is going to have to announce his nice big fat bonus he's going to get, and he's the highest paid director or man at the top.
Do you know how much the Crystal Palace chairman gets paid a year?
Well, mate, well, let me finish. But when Daniel Levy gets his bonus, which he will, because loads of off the field success has been coming, why should Spurs fans? Again, the stadium was made on the basis that we needed it to be able to pay the big wages. I know we got to pay it off, and that part totally understandable. I get with the bringing in like we said, match day, outside events and all these sponsorships and everything. It's all coming in. He'll get a bonus for off the field, but there's no desire, commitment or anything. When all those fans that do go in, like you said, for the experience, all they want to see is a team that is ready to compete for where we should be, where we have been. And we're not doing that. We're not doing that. And then when he announces his bonus, there is going to be absolute, I mean, forget what we've had just from announcing concerts. When he announces his bonus, which he will do, and it'll probably be bigger than last year's.
I can guarantee the people that feel the same way that you do are going to go apoplectic. But again,
I think everyone should. I think everyone should.
And that's fine, mate. I'm not going to argue with your opinion on that. But at the end of the day,
I'm all for these events. I'm all for NFL. Yeah. Bring it home. Bring it here. Bring the concert. I'm all for it. But look after the fans as well. Look after the lifeblood of the team. Look after the community that helped build you up to where you are now. And I know that Levy's on a lot.
In what fashion? In what fashion?
Maybe make the prices reasonable for the tickets and look after the fans. I think that should be your number one. You're making all this money from all these events and all these different things where, let's be honest, a few percentage points here and there for the ticket prices isn't going to make that much of a difference, in my opinion.
What's the waiting list for a season ticket right now?
Well,
I think waiting list is screwed though, because if you get a certain type of membership, you're automatically on the waiting list, and a lot of those don't actually take up season tickets when offered.
Okay, but I don't know what else to say apart
officially it's what, 60,000 or something? I don't know, 100,000.
It's not actually.
But every single season, the season ticket allocation is taken up, right?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So,
but every season,
I don't know what to say.
They're offering them out willy nilly these days.
But they're always taken up.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know how else to say this in a way that's palatable to people that have got their mind made up. It doesn't. I don't care how people feel. If people want to feel a certain way, it's fine. But there's just realities of the situation that are consistent and not in any way, shape or form questioned or chastised in every other walk of life and in most other football clubs.
I understand that, Sean. Your opinion is if there's a chance to make more money, they're going to do it, and if they can make more money, they will. And what other business wouldn't? That's your opinion, and
it's demand and supply. It's elasticity of demand.
I understand that, but I think back to what the Bayern Munich chairman said all those years ago. He said, the price of a season ticket for us, if we can make them £1,000 a year, and for us that maybe gets us an extra couple of million or whatever it is. For that season, right? And that's something that we discuss over 5 minutes in a transfer. Yeah, that's a lot of money for the extra fans. So that's why our season ticket prices are more like 300.
Do you know what he didn't say in his analysis of why they don't do that or do that? Is that they have a theme in German football in the Bundesliga and the Zweites Bundesliga and the Drittes Bundesliga. They have a theme that is only that the mirage is only broken for two clubs. One of them Bayer Leverkusen, who are owned by Bayer, the family, the pharmaceutical giant. But the rest of them have 51% ownership models, right? Mm-hmm. It's a different vibe. It's a different theme in Germany that most German clubs don't succeed as a consequence of. But teams like Munich and Dortmund are the beneficiaries of. Again, you have to, if you're going to not you personally, Sim, but just generally speaking, if you're going to lean into those sorts of comments and quotes, why is it that, Berlin don't feel the same? There's realities to the model that exist in Germany that don't exist in the Premier League. If Tottenham were to pivot to a 51% ownership model, right, whereby you'd have more people on the board that are not necessarily charged with the notion of profit and profit only as the sort of predominant method of success, and you were to have fans on there, I mean, God forbid that would be the case when you have fans like the donut in the chat who sits there and advocates for relegation as a precursor to what he really wants. And the same with cup trophies that were the reason why we had the movement in the first place, and now being a problem. I don't think that necessarily that 51% ownership is a good thing unless every team in the Premier League subscribes to it. And when you can't even, under the guise of financial fair play and PSR, have a model that is even slightly appearing like it has a level playing field, then God help us if Tottenham were to move to a model that was more fan-centric, because you're never going to appease everybody all the time. And ultimately, unless
Yeah, I
everybody
think it
else
would probably
plays
be a
ball, it doesn't
disaster.
work that
I
way.
agree. It would probably be a
100%.
disaster. Yeah, I don't disagree with that. And also, if there are fans out there of the opinion that they don't like the ownership and they're happy to be convinced of change, but they don't want to go out protesting because, you know, what are you protesting for in terms of who's coming in? It could always get worse. These are owners, for better or worse, who do keep the club in a financial stable position and do increase revenues, and we aren't in a position that we're ever going to go under and all these different things. And it's better the devil you know than the devil you don't. I understand that opinion as well, but I also think it's only right that the fans should have their voices heard, and the fans should let their displeasure be known, and there should be protests. I agree,
and I agree. You've never, Brian, mate. You can advocate for this, right? You're one of the staunchest Levy outers. Please, like, tell me if I'm wrong, but have I not, since the day one of me being in this community, sharing a screen with you, have I not always supported your right to protest? Have I not always championed your effort? Have I not always backed the right to protest? And that I think it's a necessary part of the conversation. I just disagree with you on why, and I disagree with you on your determined output. But ultimately, do I not support protests against Daniel Levy?
I listen. I will categorically agree with Sean there. He's always been. Listen, Sean and I started streaming together, and one of the first times he did, I gave myself a concussion from whacking my head over the head with a placemat, a genuine concussion. But listen, Sean and I disagree on a lot of things football-wise or ownership-wise. But what he's just said is right, and I will say this as well. What I will say. And I made a big thing about this, and I think I messaged got to you about this, Sean. You look at that Liverpool protest that changed for Spurs and Jay arranged. Yes, it was a Sunday before Christmas. There's a lot of people in YouTube chats, social media world, and everyone saying, "I'm going to be there. I'm going to be there. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that." Now's the time. Hardly anyone turned up. Sean at least went over there. I know for a fact Sean was there. Maybe not to protest, but speak to people, ask people why you do it, blah, blah, blah. I listen, this is the thing. It's...
I'll be there on Sunday. I'll be there on Sunday as well. I'll be over. I'll come over. I'll say hello to everybody. Everyone that, wants to have a frank conversation.
It comes to the point. Sean, and I will say, but mainly for me, he has always said that Brian, what he does, blah, blah. You know what? People know what I've done and what I've done with the other people. So it's not just me. I'm not going to go through loads of bloody names, so we'll be here all day. But the people that were at the training ground with me, the people that I stood proudly with outside the training club shop, week in, week out, and a lot of people saying
massive support. Didn't you go 15 days? You went 15 days, right?
16 days. 16 days straight at the changing room, not the changing room, the training ground.
Right? That's effort, not people that like talk a great game, rock up for 5 minutes at the end of the day, and then go on their various, soapboxes and proclaim like they're martyrs and that everyone else is the problem. That's who I have an issue with. Not you, Brian. I think you're sensational, mate. I think you're champion of your cause, and I think you're a brilliant advocate for it. But there's other people that I think are frauds in that regard.
What I will say on the other side of this as well is now, with what Change for Spurs have done, and what with Jay alongside them, what they've done is incredible. The way they've gone about it, the Leicester one was brilliant. The greatest thing I've seen about this is there are more and more people on board, and I'm including YouTube channels. I'm not going to start, but there's loads more people that feel the way that people have felt. And I've always said it doesn't matter, and Sean, you would have heard me say this as well. People know I've been Levy out since Martignol, the very second he went. But some people, it could have been hiring Jose Mourinho. Some it could have been the Super League. Some could have been the window Poch got the season Poch got nothing to spend. It could be where we are right here, right now. It's not a case of I told you so. Where have you been? Why didn't you listen to me? Blah blah. It's all about right now coming together. That's all it is. Whether people have disagreed with each other in the past, called people out in the past, it doesn't matter. It's now a case of I've been here for 17 years personally. Taken abuse, some of it warranted, probably with my actions of the way I've shouted and screamed on streams. Maybe some of it isn't. But I've been here, done that, got the T-shirt and everything. But the people that have come on from whatever time it be, welcome aboard. Welcome aboard. This isn't the time for throwing shots at each other. I'm not getting a U-turn or anything. It's now, I've seen it on Twitter, as Twitter does. Twitter is what Twitter does. It doesn't matter how people feel about each other right now, or any spats or whatever. It's about coming together. I tried to fight many battles, and we won some. The group I proudly stand with, and still do what we do. But we need numbers to win the war, and the numbers are coming. So this is why Sunday is so massive.
Whether you are coming, people.
Whether you are going on the march, which I urge anyone that can get to the ground beforehand to do so.
There's a sitting protest, I believe.
The bigger the numbers that we get there, it's exposure. You saw how well it got. Absolutely, the mass exposure. Sorry, it got for the Leicester game with what they did. Well, if there's thousands doing that walk, it gets the exposure. During the game, the chanting will get the exposure. The sitting will get the exposure. I'm not expecting Daniel Levy to go, "Oh, I surrender. I'm now going to sell the club."
Yeah, please don't. Please don't. That's not going to happen.
Oh, mate, the day that happens, mate, I don't know how I'm going to celebrate, but I will be celebrating.
He's going to sell the club at half time. Did you not hear?
Oh, mate,
yeah.
Do you know what? He always
pennies
does
in the
things
pound.
differently.
Pennies in the pound.
You never know. He'll come out and have an interview with COYS and go, "Yep, that's it. I'm selling. You've done your job." But yeah, what it's all right now is sticking together for people that are against the board and making the numbers count and doing this right and well. And thanks to what Change for Spurs did, and they've done spaces. I've had Jay on my channel a few times. I know Jay's going on a few other channels this week. I know you've got some. They've been doing spaces. They're getting the awareness out there. The international fans are being included, which is a massive part of this. A massive, massive part that have been overlooked. And I'm delighted that the international fans, which I now consider myself one of, have a part to play. And it's all about Sunday, and it's all about coming together. If you feel this way about the board, and helping to put the pressure on them.
Absolutely.
My God,
And even if you don't feel that way about the board, sorry, Ben, one thing. Even if you don't feel that way about the board, I would still encourage you to go over, because I'll go. Like I say, I'll be over there as long as I'm welcome. I'll be over there, and I will. I won't sing your songs that you sing, and I won't hold up placards or whatever. But I do think that the movement has outcomes that are beneficial in a world where Daniel Levy remains, which I think he will do. So I support it, but I think people should go over there and support the guys, because people like Brian, who I have absolute respect for, have put in a shift. Other people not so much, specifically a few.
Let's not just get into all that. Let's not get into all of that. But
well, hold on, hang on a second, Ben. I'm not going to get into it, mate. But I was called a saboteur on your channel after the Aston Villa game by a certain person, right? It's ludicrous.